Have you ever wondered why beams in buildings are eye-shaped, or why wheels on racing bikes are so thin, or why it's harder to spin a door when you push it near the hinges but much easier when you push near the edge? The answer to all of these lies in one powerful concept: moment of inertia. Moment of inertia tells us how much difficult it is to rotate an object, and in engineering, it's one of the most important properties when dealing with beams, load-bearing frames, and any structures that might bend or twist. But it's more than just physics. From designing bridges to making lightweight aircraft, understanding how materials resist bending and rotation is what keeps structures standing and people safe. In this video, you will learn what moment of inertia is, how engineers calculate it for different shapes, how it affects bending, stress distribution, and load placement, and how real-world structures use this principle to stay strong and efficient. Let's begin with the core idea behind it all. What is moment of inertia? Let's say you want to spin something, maybe a turntable, a fan blade, or even a building component like a wind turbine rotor. Some objects rotate easily, others feel stubborn, resisting your effort. What causes that resistance to rotation? That resistance is called the moment of inertia, and it's one of the most fundamental principles in engineering mechanics. We already know that mass resists motion in a straight line. If you try to push a heavy box, it takes more effort because it has more mass. But if you try to spin a wheel, the resistance you feel isn't just because it's heavy. It's also because of how the weight is distributed. That resistance to rotational motion is measured by moment of inertia. Moment of inertia, I, is the rotational equivalent of mass. It tells us how much an object resists angular acceleration just like mass resists linear acceleration. I is equals to summation mi ri square. This equation means break the object into tiny masses mi, multiply each by the square of its distance ri from the axis of rotation and add them all together. So more mass means more inertia. Mass farther from axis means a lot more inertia. For a single point mass, I is equals to mr square. This is the simplest form used for single objects or particles rotating around a point. Example, a 5 kilogram mass rotating 2 meters from a center. I is equals to 5 multiplied by 2 square, which is equals to 20 kilogram square meters. If you double the distance, r is equals to 4. The moment of inertia becomes 80 kilogram square meters. That's 4 times more just by doubling the distance. This is why position of mass matters more than the amount. When engineers design a beam or shaft, they are not just thinking how much does this weight. They are asking how far is the material from the center? Will it resist bending or twisting effectively? That's because moment of inertia controls how much a structure resists rotational motion or bending. Take a look at a steel I-beam. Most of its material is far from the center, which gives it a very high moment of inertia without adding too much weight. That's why I-beams are used in bridges, high-rise buildings, cranes, and heavy machinery. They are light in the center and strong where it counts, at the edges where bending stress is highest. Just like Newton's second law in linear motion is F is equals to ma, the rotational version is torr is equals to I alpha, where tau is torque, I is moment of inertia, and alpha is angular acceleration. So, the higher the moment of inertia, the more torque is needed to rotate. The lower the moment, easier to spin. SI unit of moment of inertia is kilogram square meters. In beam design, we often use millimeters raised to power 4 for area moment of inertia. Quiz time. You have two flywheels with the same mass. One is solid, the other is a ring. Which one is harder to start spinning? Correct answer is B, the ring, because the mass is concentrated farther from the center, giving it a higher moment of inertia. Now that you know what moment of inertia is and why it's so critical in design, let's learn how to actually calculate it for different shapes that engineers use every day, from simple rectangles to eye sections. Now that you understand what moment of inertia means, the next question is, how do we calculate it for real world objects like beams, plates, rods, or cylinders? In engineering, most objects aren't single point masses, they are 2D or 3D, and for those, we calculate moment of inertia based on geometry. This is called the area moment of inertia, also known as the second moment of area. It's used when analyzing bending in beams, where the shape of the cross section plays a huge role in how strong and stiff it is. For simple shapes, engineers have derived standard formulas. All these are calculated with respect to a specific axis, usually the centroidal axis or the base or edge of the object. Let's look at a few common shapes. First, rectangle. I is equals to 1 by 12 bh cube, where b is base width and h is height. Moment of inertia increases with the cube of height, which means increasing height gives a much stiffer beam than increasing width. That's why beams are tall and narrow, not wide and flat. Second, circle. I is equals to 1 by 4 pi r raised to power 4, or using diameter, I is equals to pi by 64 d raised to power 4, where r is radius and d is diameter. Third, hollow circular tube. I is equals to pi by 64 d o raised to power 4 minus di raised to power 4, where do is outer diameter and di is inner diameter. Engineers love hollow tubes, strong, lightweight, and they resist bending almost as well as solid rods, but with far less materials. Fourth, eye section. The I beam is brilliant because most of the material is placed far from the neutral axis, where it contributes most to moment of inertia. Its exact formula depends on the flange width, web thickness, and overall height. But the takeaway is more height means dramatically more rotational resistance. Central web provides stability with less material. This is why you see eye sections everywhere, from skyscrapers to bridges. Next, parallel axis theorem. Sometimes we need to calculate moment of inertia not about the centroidal but about a parallel axis. Then we use the parallel axis theorem. I is equals to IC plus AD square, where IC is moment of inertia through the centroid. A is area of the shape. D is distance between the centroidal axis and the new axis. This is super useful when analyzing composite sections like welded plates or off-center loads. The farther the material is from the axis, the greater its effect on moment of inertia. That's why smart cross-section design can make a structure vastly strong without using much more material. This leads to more efficient, lighter, and cheaper designs. Here is a comparison table. Quiz time. Two beams are made of the same material and have the same width and total area. One is rectangular and the other is an eye section. Which one will resist bending more? Correct answer is B, eye section beam, because more material is concentrated far from the neutral axis, increasing eye significantly. You have now learned how different shapes influence the moment of inertia. But how does this affect a real beam under load? How do engineers know if a structure will bend, stay stable, or fail? That's exactly what we will cover next. So far, we have learned what moment of inertia is and how to calculate it for different shapes. But now comes the real application. How does moment of inertia help a beam resist bending? This is where rotational resistance becomes one of the most powerful ideas in structural engineering. Beams don't just carry load, they resist rotation. When you place a load on a beam, it doesn't just compress or stretch, it bends. The top fibers of the beam compress, the bottom fibers stretch, and the material in the center, the neutral axis, doesn't change length. The beam is trying to rotate or flex about this neutral axis, and that's where moment of inertia fights back. In engineering, the stiffness of a beam in bending is described by the product flexural rigidity is equals to EI, where E is Young's modulus and I is moment of inertia. So, a beam's resistance to bending depends on both the material and the cross sectional geometry. If either E or I increases, the beam becomes stiffer and resists bending more. Now, stress distribution in a bending beam. When a beam bends, the top fibers are in compression, the bottom fibers are in tension, the middle remains unchanged. The farther from the neutral axis, the more stress a fiber experiences. This is why we put material far away from the center. That's where it does the most work resisting bending. Let's say you have a flat steel plate and an I-beam made with the same amount of steel. Which one will bend less under load? The I-beam every time, because it has a much higher amount of inertia even though both weigh the same. It places more material at the top and bottom, far from the neutral axis, increasing its bending resistance dramatically. Let's compare two beams. Beam A, rectangular cross section, I is equals to 20 cm raised to power 4. Beam B, I section with the same area, but I is equals to 120 cm raised to power 4. Both are made of steel with E is equals to 200 gigapascals. Then EIA is equals to 400 gigapascals centimeter raised to power 4. EIB is equals to 24,000 gigapascals centimeter raised to power 4. Beam B is 6 times stiffer under bending, even though it uses the same amount of material. That's the power of geometry in engineering. Different support conditions also affect how a beam behaves. Simply supported bends more, reactions at ends only. Fixed ends, less bending, more movement resistance. Cantilever, highest bending moment at the fixed support. Engineers combine the right beam shape with the right support strategy to design structures that are safe, efficient, and material smart. Quiz time. Two beams made of the same material carry the same load. One has a moment of inertia of 40 cm raised to power 4 and the other 80 cm raised to power 4. Which beam will bend less? Correct answer is B, the second one, because higher moment of inertia means greater resistance to bending. So now we know how a beam resists bending using its geometry and material. But what about the loads themselves? A load at the center behaves very differently from a load spread across the beam. Let's now explore how engineers handle that in the next chapter. Now that you understand how a beam resists bending using moment of inertia and material stiffness, let's talk about what causes the bending in the first place, the loads we apply. But here is something most beginners miss. Where and how the load is applied completely changes how the beam behaves. Let's break this down. In structural engineering, the most common types of loads are: number 1, point load. A single load applied at a specific point. Example, a person standing in the center of a plank, or a heavy machine mounted at one location. Second, uniformly distributed load. Load spread evenly over the length of the beam. Example, a ceiling with evenly spaced lights, or snow on a rooftop. Third, uniformly varying load. Load intensity increases or decreases across the span. Example, wind pressure on a wall or water pressure against a dam wall. How load type affects beam behavior. Let's take a simple beam with two supports. If we apply a point load in the middle, the beam bends most right under the load. If we apply a uniformly distributed load, the bending is spread out more smoothly across the beam. If we apply a uniformly varying load, the beam bends more near the heavier end of the load. This is why engineers use different formulas to calculate bending moments and deflection for each load type. The bending moment tells us how much torque is acting on a section of the beam due to the applied load. For a simply supported beam with a point load at the center, M max is equals to PL divided by 4. A uniformly distributed load, M max is equals to WL square divided by 8, where L is the span of the beam. The larger the amount, the greater the internal forces, and the more likely the beam is to bend or fail. So, when we design beams, we must predict the maximum bending moment, ensure the beam's stiffness is enough to handle it, position the load smartly to avoid high stresses. Let's say you place a 5 kg load on a steel beam. In case 1, the entire weight is placed in the center. In case 2, the load is spread out evenly. Even though both apply the same total weight, the beam in case 2 bends less. Why? Because the bending moment is more distributed and there is no sharp stress concentration. It lowers the peak stress, it reduces deflection, it helps use thinner or lighter beams, it improves long-term durability of structures. That's why, when possible, engineers spread heavy loads using slabs, base plates, or stiffeners. Use continuous supports to share the bending forces. Avoid placing heavy loads near the mid-span unless the beam is heavily reinforced. Quiz time, you have a simply supported beam. Which load type will create the least concentrated bending moment? Correct answer is B, uniformly distributed load, because it spreads the load, reducing the peak bending moment. So now you know it's not just the amount of load that matters, but how it's applied, where it's placed, and how the beam is supported. In the final chapter, let's tie it all together with real engineering structures, bridges, cars, buildings, and see how moment of inertia and load management are applied in the real world. You have now learned the core concepts: what moment of inertia is, how shape affects it, how beams resist bending, and how different loads change beam behavior. But how does this knowledge actually translate into the real world? Let's explore how engineers apply this principle in critical structural and mechanical systems every single day. First, bridge design. Take a highway bridge. Heavy vehicles pass over it every day. To carry all that weight, bridges are designed to spread loads evenly across wide beams called girders. Most of these girders are I beams, and now you know why. The flanges at the top and bottoms are far from the center. This gives a very high moment of inertia. The web in the middle connects the flanges while minimizing weight. So with less material, we get more bending resistance, perfect for long spans and heavy loads. Second, buildings. In tall buildings, loads are transferred from roof, floors, columns to ground. Every beam and column is sized using expected load, beam span and support type, moment of inertia needed to prevent excessive deflection. If a beam deflects too much, even if it doesn't break, it can crack walls, damage ceilings, misalign doors and windows, and cause long term fatigue. That's why architects work closely with structural engineers to choose effective beam shapes, often T-beams, L-beams, or hollow box sections with optimized inertia. Third, automotive and aerospace. In vehicles and aircraft, weight is the enemy. Every extra kilogram reduces fuel efficiency, but parts must still resist vibration, shocks, and aerodynamic loads. That's where engineers use hollow shaft, thin walled tubes, aerodynamic beams, and carefully tuned moment of inertia profiles across the structure. For example, a car's suspension control arm must resist bending under braking. An aircraft wing flexes under lift force but must snap back without permanent deformation. A Formula One car's carbon fiber tub is shaped for maximum rigidity with minimum mass. Moment of inertia helps balance strength with performance. Fourth, machinery and rotating systems. Not all applications deal with beam. Some need rotation. A flywheel stores energy based on its moment of inertia. A crankshaft must be both light and rotationally stable. Industrial robots use joints that balance speed and stiffness using inertia based calculations. Engineers tune the inertia of these parts to control acceleration, reduce vibrations, and ensure smooth and responsive movement. The golden principle. Whether it's a building beam, a car chassis, or a robotic arm, the farther you place material from the axis of bending or rotation, the more resistant it becomes, and the smarter your structure is. This is what modern engineering is all about: maximizing strength, minimizing material, and designing with brains instead of bulk. Now that you have seen these real world applications, you are not just memorizing formulas, you are starting to think like an engineer. In the final chapter, we will quickly recap everything you have learned and test your knowledge with some practice questions. Congratulations, you have now unlocked one of the most important tools in an engineer's toolkit. Moment of inertia, rotational resistance, load distribution, and how all of these shape the way we design safe and efficient structures. Before we wrap up, let's quickly review what you have learned and then test it with some realistic practice problems. First, moment of inertia. It tells us how much an object resists rotational motion. Depends on mass and its distance from the axis. Formula for a point mass I is equals to mr square. Second, area moment of inertia, used in beam design to resist bending. Depends heavily on the shape and dimensions of a cross section. Common formulas: rectangle I is equals to 1 by 12 bh cube. Circle I is equals to pi by 4 r raised to power 4. Hollow tube I is equals to pi by 64 d o raised to power 4 minus di raised to power 4. Third, flexural rigidity, product of Young's modulus and moment of inertia. Higher EI is equals to more resistance to bending. Fourth, load distribution. Point loads cause concentrated bending. Uniformly distributed loads spreads the stress more evenly. Load position and support type drastically affect structural behavior. Fifth, real engineering insight. I-beams maximize I while minimizing weight. Automotive and aerospace systems are tuned using inertia. Smart material placement gives high strength with low weight. Let's now test your understanding with 10 questions. You have just mastered one of the most powerful tools in structural engineering, a concept that influences bridges, cars, aircraft, robots, and even the chair you are sitting on. If this video helped you understand moment of inertia like never before, like the video, subscribe to Basecamp Engineering, and drop your questions or answers in the comments. See you next Friday.